afternoon, everybody. It's Hank Linderman here at Getting Angry. Boy, do we have lots of reason to be angry these days. Well, you were just looking at a picture of our guest who's going to be here very soon, Dr. Alexandra Owensby. We met yesterday on the phone, and I invited her to come on. It should be a very interesting conversation. My name is Hank Linderman. I'm running for Congress here in Kentucky's 2nd District. That's from Bowling Green on up to Bullitt County and Owensboro across to Danville. We are going to ask you all to please share the broadcast, because when we share, an angel gets their wings. So anyway, we need your help. Cindy Braun Franklin is here. Barbara Tichy is here. Bill McNichol is here. Everybody's looking like they're going to share. Chris Pritchard is here. Chris, you already shared. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, there's so much to tell you all about, and I've been on the phone. You know, this job of running for Congress is like nothing I've ever done. I mean, in some ways it's like things I've done before, but it's like nothing I've really done before in combination. And so you wake up pretty early and you read whatever the horrible news is of the day, and you start to gather the thoughts you're going to be sharing. And then we have telephone calls, and I had a telephone call from a Grammy-winning artist, friend, supporter, who I invited to be on the show. I'm not sure if he's going to make it. I don't want to pressure him, but it would be a spectacular conversation and a big deal. I'll just give you a hint. It's someone that Bob Dylan quotes every so often. So I'd be very excited for him to show up. Jim Porter is here, and he shared. All right, we got some work to do before we can have the fun of our phone call. So look, let's have a look at these dreadful numbers, of course. We carry on. Look how close we are to 190,000 deaths. You know, someone did the math for me the other day. I didn't do it this morning. Maybe one of you that's a math person could do me a favor and tell me if we put 188,900 total deaths in the United States. I mean, this is just incredible. To the population of the United States, which I believe is 330 million. And tell me, the other day it was something like 1 in every 1,800 people had died from this. And that number is only going to increase. And it's just crazy. Anyway, the next terrible number here is in looking at the top states. And California remains the highest with the most amount of cases, but look at the new cases in Texas and the highest amount of deaths yesterday. These are all yesterday. So, you know, the news continues to confound us. Why we won't do the right thing, I don't quite know. I have my theories, but they're just theories. Let's have a look down here at Kentucky, because Kentucky had a tough day yesterday. 15 new deaths, and that's very high, and 789 new cases. Now that is, I believe, a brand new record for second most new cases in one day. And I think the one day that we had over 1,000 new cases, that was a statistical anomaly because it included 300 cases that popped in out of nowhere out of a correctional facility. So this is what we're dealing with. The virus is not going away, and it looks to me like, I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about this. There's a new guy, I believe his name is Scott Atlas, who the president has decided is going to be part of the pandemic response team. And this guy is a radiologist, and he's got no experience, as far as I know, in infectious diseases. And there's a concern that he's going to pitch the idea of herd immunity. Now, he was just on Fox News yesterday denying that he had said any such thing. So I need to dig into it a little bit further. And Mark, that's what I saw as well. But I also saw a quick moment with Tucker Carlson where Tucker Carlson said, "Did you say that? Have you advised this to the president?" And he flat out denied it, but I haven't had time to dig into it enough yet. As we know, herd immunity, the approach of herd immunity would be a very, very bad idea, because it would leave up to 2 million Americans dead, and it wouldn't be until sometime basically a year from now, possibly. So he is the herd immunity guy, but we're not sure exactly how deep that goes. So there may be, look, we really want to be sure what we're talking about here. So before we go off half-cocked, let's dig into it. And Mark, do me a favor, dig into it, see what you find. That would be interesting. Some news, a quick story that I wanted to share with you before we start with Alexandra is a very interesting thing related to renewable energy or our energy future. As you know, we are very reliant on fossil fuels. And in the United States, that means primarily oil. It also means coal, and it also means fracking, natural gas. So we believe that that's a huge factor, of course, in the problems that we face in our environment, that you can't burn, 6 trillion or 16 trillion tons of fossil fuels over a period of time, most of it in the last 30, 40 years. You can't do that and not have a result on the environment. So one of the kind of controversial discussions is regarding nuclear power. Now, old nuclear power are, huge city block size or multiple city block sized installations that when they go bad, they really go bad, as we have seen in various places around the world, including the United States. But we have a new technology that's available that I wanted to show you a little bit of. Whoops, need to go to, there we go. Sorry about that. So this is a new modular small reactor, and it has gotten the approval of the United States. It's gotten the safety approval. The size of this thing is apparently about the length of 2 school buses laid end to end, so 70 some feet, something like that. Let's see what the text says about it. I'll disappear here for a second. 76 feet tall, 15 feet wide, and capable of producing 50 megawatts. The idea is that they would combine these. The other idea is that it uses natural forces to keep it cool. It uses gravity. It's a passive cooling system. Now, providing that they can get the quality and the safety to this, even if it goes bad, it won't be nearly as bad as 3 Mile Island or Fukushima or the other. In California, I think San Onofre has been shut down because they realize it's on an earthquake. So it would take multiples of these working together to equal a big nuclear reactor. And I'm not saying I endorse it right now, but I think it is definitely worth looking into. So here we go. We're going to, in a moment here, we're going to get Angela on the phone. I want to show you her district. Remember, I'm in the 2nd district, so I'm just kind of to the left of the 2. Now, Alexandra is up in the 4th district, and this is technically, I guess we would call it a rural district because, as you notice, Louisville is number 3, and as you go east from Louisville, that's a lot of farm country up there. But the north end of the 4th includes Covington, and right across the river is Cincinnati, which is obviously a metropolitan area. So let's see if we can get Alexandra on the phone. We spoke just a little bit earlier, and she's agreed, by the way, she's agreed to play Name That Republican. So I'm very excited.
Hey, how are you?
Alexandra, how are you doing?
I'm phenomenal. How are you, Hank?
Well, it's a dangerous question these days. That's what I like to say.
It is 2020, so as long as you are still on this side of the hospital bed, it is a good day, right?
Well, that brings up an interesting point because you are one of them doctors.
I am. I'm a nurse practitioner, but yes, I'm a doctorate level nurse practitioner.
Okay. Now, but before we get into that, I first have to ask you, we're looking at your picture. It says, "Welcome to Central Park, the pride of our community." And you've got a train sign on your campaign sign. What's the train?
For my campaign logo.
Sorry?
Yeah, so originally what we were going to go with was, I was kind of talking to some people and some strategists about my story, and they felt like kind of with all that I've endured and undergone that I should have my theme be kind of the little engine that could.
Oh.
Well, if you read the book, it's all about, this engine that's trying to help people out and all of these people go by, all of these big, mighty trains go by, right? And they all say, no, I can't help you. I'm too busy. No, I'm too important. I can't do anything to help you little guys out. And then the little train that doesn't look like much and is very ordinary comes, and she's the one that's willing to help people out. And so, that was kind of the story behind our campaign, and also just the fact that, even though same things seem impossible at first, just as long as you think that you can and you keep trying, that's where success comes in, and that's where you're able to help out, everyday people like my campaign's trying to do.
Yes, I think that's a lovely concept. Of course, I love it.
Thanks.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, that was the original theme with it, and then we kind of evolved over time as we got more and more into what the incumbent that I'm running against is like, and we just kind of became more of the voice for Kentucky's 4th District because he doesn't do a very good job of speaking up for anybody.
That's true. We'll get to him in a little bit. So what were you thinking? You've got a job in the medical community. What were you thinking? Why would you run for Congress?
Well, even before COVID, right? Because, I started running, well over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that time, even before COVID hit, healthcare was a huge issue in America. And we keep looking at getting these different systems, right? The Affordable Care Act has some good things about it, but really fell well short of the mark of where we need to be with the healthcare system. And as a healthcare provider, I constantly have people tell me my Social Security's been cut, and I can either afford my medicine or my food, and I'm going to buy my food, so I need you to tell me what I can do without taking medicine to stay out of the hospital.
Right.
I see people over and over again that come back in repetitively because they can't afford their seizure medications, and so they keep having seizures and coming into the hospital. And I see people in the hospital that have been diagnosed with cancer that really need to stay a couple of days over the weekend to get a biopsy, but they know that they have a lifetime limit on their insurance, and they want to reach it as slowly as possible because they know that the medical bills are going to be overwhelming.
That can't be good, by the way, taking your medicine slowly, taking it differently from the way you're supposed to take it. That doesn't sound like a good
Well,
plan.
and that's it. And if these people can't afford their medicines, guess what else they can't afford? Their hospital stay. So that falls back on, the burden of the healthcare system. And that's one of the many things that's wrong with it. People ask me all the time because I am a fan of eventually getting to the single-payer healthcare system. And people ask all the time, how are we going to pay for it? And I'm like, we're already paying for it. Come on. We are already, all of us are absorbing the cost of these people that go into the hospital that can't afford their admissions, that can't afford to stay out of the hospital. It's so much cheaper to do preventative care than it is to do slapping a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage, right? And just waiting for it till it comes off again.
Well, that is certainly something, we get asked, since we're both candidates, we do get asked, how are you going to pay for it? And one of the answers I use is, how do we pay for the F-35? And most people can't answer that. And if they can answer it, they can't tell me how much we're paying for it. And the point is that when we decide that we're going to do something, as a nation, once we decide to do it, we usually find the money. We can find a way to pay for it.
Yep. And I am a fan of, running a balanced budget for sure. But I think maybe we need to reprioritize where we're doing our spending, right? And so I think if we can build into people's healthcare system, make sure that all Americans have access to affordable healthcare, whether they're employed or not, then we're going to reduce the burden on the medical care system. We're going to reduce the burden of people that are out sick on disability because they're constantly hospitalized over and over again. Those people are going to be part of the workforce. They're not going to be on disability. They're not going to be on government assistance. And so then they can pay into the tax system anyway. And so I think it's one of those things that really does kind of help pay for itself as you go along with the, again, the whole long-term plan versus looking at things in a short-term package.
When people have health care, as they do in other nations, every other developed nation, they tend to go to the doctor when they get sick.
Sure.
Where
and
here,
if you look at
a lot of folks don't. They, I saw some statistic that said that a lot of women are more concerned about the expense of breast cancer than actually having breast cancer.
Mm-hmm. And we see it with COVID, right? You see all these news stories about people's last words before they get put on a ventilator is, oh, wait, stop. Who's going to pay for this?
Right.
And that shouldn't be the story of our nation, right? It shouldn't be people that are dying wonder, how on earth are we going to afford this?
Well,
And, I mean, I think if you look at our healthcare system, I mean, it's changed drastically over the years, right? And the fact that people used to work for one job from the time that they graduated college until the time that they retired, and that same job held the same insurance, and they were covered by the same insurance company. That's no longer the story. People change jobs all the time, and our employers also change the insurance company based on who's, the cheapest. And so we don't get that healthcare plan. Childhood obesity is such a problem, but none of the insurance companies care about it because they are just all hoping that they won't be the ones stuck holding the bill when that child gets cardiovascular disease at a young age.
Wow. That reminds me, by the way, one of the stories I saw recently was a complaint that now they've decided that 94% of the people who died from COVID had some other medical condition. And so the response from the conservative, the conservative echo chamber was, see, it's not that dangerous. It's really this other thing. But you just mentioned obesity, and there's a pretty good amount of obesity in the United States. Is it over 30%?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's more than that, right? So whenever you look at that study, and this is what is so dangerous about that whole misconception. So if you come into the hospital and you have COVID, you're ultimately, most of these people that die are going to develop respiratory distress. Respiratory distress is a second diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And the way that the insurance companies work is we need to put down as many diagnoses as we can so they understand exactly how complex that patient is, right? Mm-hmm. So if you put down somebody came in and they have COVID and that's it, then they're going to be like, why did this person die? Like they just had COVID and nothing else. But if you put down, well, they had COVID and then they developed, cardiovascular problems as a result of that. They developed heart failure, which is a big thing that these COVID patients develop. It's not that that person had that going into the hospital. It's that COVID caused that. And at the time that they died, these were all the complications because what we know about COVID is that it literally affects every system of your body.
Yes.
It affects your lungs. It affects your heart. It affects your brain. And so as you develop, obviously the people that die from COVID are very sick. They have more than one thing wrong, and it's all caused by COVID in many cases. But it's going to not just be the COVID diagnosis, right? It's going to be acute respiratory distress syndrome, toxic metabolic encephalopathy, which is the brain confusion with it, the congestive heart failure, which is the problems that come from the heart, the SIRS, systematic inflammatory response syndrome. All of those go along with severe cases of COVID. And that's why you're seeing only 6% had just the diagnosis of COVID. Honestly, that tells me that that's doctors that just didn't feel like documenting all the other stuff that went along with it.
That's possible. But it also reflected the desire of right-wing media and the right-wing echo chamber to say, this is nothing. There's nothing here. Nothing to see here. This is just the flu.
And even when you look at the people that did have pre-existing conditions, many times those pre-existing conditions were hypertension. And that's it. How many people over the age of 40 have hypertension?
In 2020?
Almost 100%, I would guess, over the last couple of years.
It's pretty high. I noticed that I have to watch my own intake of wine and beer. I have to just be careful with it. So I think all of us are doing that. And when we talk about COVID-19, sometimes people are talking about the weight they're picking up because we're stuck at home. We can't, we're having to cook for ourselves. Anyway, well, look, I want to talk to you about a few other things, but I really want to play this game that I talked to you about called Name That.
I'm excited.
Name That Republican. Now, there are no prizes. Right. There are no prizes.
Oh, son of a gun. Now I'm not excited about this.
Well, there are no prizes, and I think a lot of the people listening already know some of the answers. So.
All right, I was going to say, now I will warn you, I tend to read most of my news, right, because I have small children and I work and all that other stuff.
Oh, so you're going to lower our expectations now.
Yes, I'm going to lower my expectations right off of the bat. But let's see what I got. I'm excited.
Do you want an easy one or a hard one?
Ooh, let's start off easy.
You want to start off easy?
Yes, please. We'll build my way up.
Okay, this is a pretty easy one. See if you can get it. Ready?
Okay.
Here you go.
People taking the Fifth Amendment. You see, the mob takes the Fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
That's Trump.
Exactly. I think I need some applause. I need some applause. I've got some applause somewhere. Here we go. Yay.
You came fully prepared.
I came fully prepared. Okay, so now let's try some more. Now these are more difficult, and sometimes they sound like, wow, that sounds like two different people, because there'll be two different quotes. So here we go. Here's quote A from this next person.
Donald Trump is everything we hear and teach our kids not to do in kindergarten.
Okay. Let's go with
Do you want to hear another?
Yep.
Okay, here's another.
What about his truthfulness? Did you think he was a truthful person?
Yes, in every instance that I dealt with him, he was truthful, he listened, and he was great to work with.
Is that Nikki Haley?
Nikki Haley, yes.
Woohoo!
Congratulations. Fantastic.
Took me a second. For a second, I wasn't sure if it was Kellyanne Conway, because, you know, they kind of go along those same.
They're kind of similar. Well, Kellyanne really hasn't ever changed her tune, has she?
That's true. That's true. Well, I mean, now that she's hanging out with her family, maybe she will a little bit more.
She might. That was. I honestly felt bad for that family. You know, that family. But that's.
It must be in such turmoil.
And that's, you know, that's a family that's been torn apart by the politics in our country. And you know, I've realized in this game, I also am going to be looking for some Republicans I admire, and there are some.
Yep.
And there are lots of them. And by the way, if you're not looking at this, I ask everybody to please check out The Bulwark, which is a conservative website that I have a tough time disagreeing with, even though I'm progressive. And they The Bulwark, they're just really well reasoned, really well thought out. If you sign up, they send you emails. I read their emails. I look forward to them. So
I will have to check that out.
You will really enjoy it. Okay, so now,
because I do think one of the things that's important, you know, for us as candidates, right, is that we both are in, you know, districts that have both Republicans and a good amount of Republicans and Democrats in them, and I think that it's important for us to get kind of what the other side is thinking, and the divisiveness that we have in our country, I think, is so important for us to overcome. Yes,
the divisiveness, which can be. You know, it can be difficult because a lot of times folks don't want to get along. They display attitudes. So this next one I'm going to play for you, it's not so much what he says, it's the way he says it. And he's speaking with former Senator John Kerry in a congressional hearing. So see if you can identify this person. Ready?
Okay, so it's not really science. So I think it's somewhat appropriate that somebody with a pseudoscience degree is here pushing pseudoscience in front of our committee today.
Do you want to hear the other one before? Because I have a feeling you know who this is. So
let's do, just because they're fun to listen to.
Here's the second one, also still in this same committee hearing with former Senator John Kerry.
There was a different world, folks. We didn't have 7 billion people.
So how did it get to 2,000 parts per million if we humans weren't here? Did geology stop when we got on the planet?
So who is that? Who is that incredibly filled with attitude speaker?
So that is what was referred to by Rolling Stones magazine as the dumbest moment in Congress by, as John Kerry referred to him, #Masshole, which is Thomas Massey, which is the guy that I'm running against.
Oh, my goodness. Well, so we have to get your applause. Here we go. Whoops. Sorry, I missed the button. There we go. Yay. Yay. Well, I love this game. I really do.
It's a fun game. I like it.
It's very much a fun game, but I'm realizing it's not really fair for me to focus on the brand of Republican that has taken over the party. And so I will be making efforts to find some quotes from Republicans I admire, and there are definitely some out there and some that I respect. For example, I respect Colin Powell. I grew up when our president was President Eisenhower, and I thought he was a great president, and so on. So I think that's what I will do. Well, let's go back to talking a little bit more about running for Congress. Like I say, what were you thinking? You had this wonderful career going. You've got children. You know, you've got responsibilities. Why on earth would you run for Congress? He asked
Right, and, you know,
knowingly.
it's funny. I mean, I used to always say that I thought you had to be crazy to run for political office. But then I started looking at all of these people in political offices that, quite frankly, I would define along those lines. And I started to go, what does it take to get better representation? And so I sat down with one of my friends, because, you know, particularly here in Kentucky, we have incredibly poor representation on a number of different levels. And so I sat down with one of my friends last year, and I started talking to them, and I'm like, what does it take? And they were like, you know what? Honestly, we need better candidates to run. We need candidates that can really get in there and really work for the seat. And, you know, as a full-time single mom, you know, I've worked 2 to 3 jobs pretty much my entire life. So I'm not afraid of hard work. And the first thing that I did, which, you know, I think is very typical of women, right? I talked to all my friends that I thought would be amazing women candidates, that I thought would be awesome running for office. And I tried to convince every last one of them to do it. And the one thing that I heard over and over again was, no, are you kidding me? Like, it's so scary running for office. I would never sign up for that. Like, you know, what they do to people whenever you run for office. Kind of a little bit with my backstory, you know, I've developed a very thick skin from a number of things that have happened throughout my life. And so the more that I tried to talk all my friends into it, the more that I realized that I was exactly the type of person that should run. And, you know, in doing so, it's been really great because I've had so many women come up to me and say, you know, that I never even would have thought of, coming up to me and saying, you know, I've always wanted to run for school board, but I always thought it would be too tough to do. And, you know, I was always really scared to. But then I see you as a full-time single mom running for Congress, and I think, well, surely if she can do that, I can run for school board. And so that alone has been really awesome to me. It's just kind of seeing the inspiration, the number of, you know, ordinary, everyday people that are thinking about stepping up to the plate, and that hopefully I encourage to step up to the plate, because I think we need more of that in every level of government.
We do need more and more people to get involved, and especially this year. And that's one of the messages we talk about constantly. You know, I said yesterday was, you know, September 1st, and I say that yesterday was when the election started, because those of us that are involved as candidates or as activists and have been helping, we've been working on this for months and months and months and months and months.
Yeah.
In fact, I ran in 2000.
Years.
Yeah, years. I ran in 2018, and I really didn't stop. I took 6 weeks off just to, you know, recover, you know, some strength, some to recenter myself.
Right.
But I've been involved ever since. But what I notice is that a lot more people have been paying attention this year early on than in years past. And even though the election starts now, this is when people's attitudes are they're suddenly going to be focusing on this more and more. And this is actually the most important and most unusual election that any of us have ever seen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially, you know, with the mail-in voting too. I mean, a lot of people are already getting their ballots. And so, you know, it's a very different dynamic right now, because you do have the mail-in voting. You do have the early voting. And so, you know, that's stuff that we've never seen in Kentucky before. But, I mean, I don't know about your district, but my district had twice the Democratic turnout this year than it did in 2018, which is very exciting. I mean, that's what we need.
Yes. Basically, we need everyone to come out and vote. And not only that, it's not enough to vote. Pick a candidate, send them a few bucks. You know, I don't mind at all saying, if you're in Alexandra, if you like Alexandra, send her some money. She'll appreciate it. Okay.
And back at you. I mean, even $5 and campaigns like ours, $5-10 makes a huge difference. You know, if 10 people send us $10 each, that's $100. And that goes such a long way with our campaign.
It does. We are very efficient, and we're running against people with millions of dollars. And the time is going to come when people have had enough, and that their money advantage won't make a difference. But
well, Hank, real quick, because I know we're about out of time, will you give us your website so that way, you know, any of my fans that are listening know where to find information about you and donate?
Very easy to find. It's at hank4ky.com. And I'd ask you also, when you get there, to look at the issues page, and there's something called the Contract for Rural and Working America. And in fact, maybe what I'll do is show a picture of that right now so that you all can get a look at it. That's available at the website. But thanks so much, Alexandra, and I hope you'll come back and talk with us. I'm sure this. I put a picture of the district up again. I meant to put your picture back up. Let's do that. Okay. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll come back. And it's really great to meet you. And thanks for.
Absolutely, and I would be honored to be on any day. It is a pleasure to chat with you, and I look forward to working with you moving forward and starting in January of next year in Washington.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Alexandra, thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks, Hank. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, that's Alexandra Owensby, and my sister in arms, running in one of these difficult districts. I'm so glad we basically bumped into each other yesterday. We had a mutual friend suggest that we talk and had a great conversation. So thank you all for being here. The work continues. Yes, even though we're getting angry, we need to be careful to maintain our cool. We don't want to lose our damn minds just because we're getting angry. We're going to use it to focus ourselves, do what needs to be done, get the vote out, get people to come to the polls and make a difference. Thank you all for being here.